And joining us live in studio is Vuyo Manga from the Ministry of Sport. He is the liaison officer for the department. Thank you so much for coming in this morning, Mr. Mhaga. And just take us back through what has transpired in terms of the progress when it comes to school sports development.
Well, you'll know that in 2012, there was an agreement that both the basic education as well as Department of Sport signed that there must be, school sport. So you are looking around 6,000 schools that started to participate in that, over 25,000 schools that are there. So yesterday was basically renewing that agreement for the next 5 years. But the important part of it now, some of the problem is that there's no infrastructure in those schools to play. Federations are not coming into play. And you'll know that on the last April, the past April that we're from, part of the challenge that report is saying is that transformation, the only way to defeat it in a longer, broader, term is to make sure that the two departments really do meet and to make sure that you are able to then bring, to unearth talent at a young age.
Yeah, but in a majority government, and I mean, it's been 24 years of democracy and people are getting frustrated and pretty much tired of the rhetoric in that, why are we not seeing meaningful change? And I'm asking because what is happening in the private sector or suburbia or previously Model C schools is still there, and we still have the perennial problems in the black neighborhoods. Why is that?
No, that is true. That's why we are saying that I think when you have to look at transformation, and you take the Siya matter now, you don't transform at the Springbok level. You then start from the pipeline. So you need to increase the pipeline of recruitment to make sure that those young people come up the rank, and you'll understand the problems that, for example, Department of Education is facing, which are very serious issues of P12S and all that. Now, we've got some guys that can fund us through the municipal infrastructure grant, sport trust. So we're going to use that money to actually augment, the money that basic education is having to make sure that we build facilities.
Yeah, maybe it's a simplistic question. I'm just saying, why can we not replicate what is working in white schools or more established schools, so to speak?
No, that's what you want to do. That's what I'm saying. In the center of it is an infrastructure. Now, majority of those schools that you're talking about, if you go to Alex, I don't know if there's any swimming pool in any school. That will be there. That is actually across, your township, your rural schools. Now, we are then saying that through the Sport Trust, we are redirecting that money to go and build infrastructure so that we can have the similar equity of competition, both the black schools as well as the white schools.
All right, so you're targeting a variety of sport at school level, including, as you were saying, swimming, etc.
Yeah.
But isn't that also part of the problem, that if you've got too many you're juggling too many projects, that you're not able to focus 100% on one? For example, if you said that soccer is more popular in the predominantly black areas, then why don't you then zoom into that particular aspect? You've
got what you call the 16 codes that we've got in the country. There's what we call the 5 apex code. That includes soccer, your cricket, your netball, your rugby. I just forgot the other one. And then the other, in the other one. So you're going to do the combination. So the school is not going to only play one sport. So it's going to play a combination of sport. Because the danger of that, if you don't do that, if you go through that report of eminent report, is that to actually put some serious dangers that the white population is actually dying at a faster rate compared to how they are giving birth. So if you don't make an intervention there, the likelihood is that they will actually die with those sports. In case in point, it will be bowling. An average player of bowling is 74 years of age. So literally, between me and you, in the next 15 years, there won't be bowling in this country. Yeah,
but what do we aim to achieve with the MOU besides just offering sporting opportunities to all? In the sense that, do we have a target in competing in the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics? Where is it that we, how high have we set the bar?
Well, I think what is important, as I've said, is to expand the pipeline of recruitment of different sport. So schools are the most massive organized format that we can be able to, to recruit talent out of that we can be able to trace that talent. And obviously, over a period of time, is to make sure that we create a winning nation. But of importance is that South Africans want to see themselves in the sporting field. How cricket has actually moved. Cricket have shifted. You see Black people are starting to see themselves through Rabata, through Pavuma, and a lot of players. And that's what we want to see across, sporting codes in South Africa.
Okay, so for a school that is in a peri-urban or rural area, be it in Kuno or, in far-flung areas where there aren't any resources, let alone opportunities, what message are we sending? So sometimes it's, we're giving a legitimate hope that will not materialize, and yet, we've got all these fancy ideas.
No, actually, talking to you now, tomorrow, the Deputy Minister will be opening, an infrastructure in Cullinan. The Minister last month, was in Limpopo, in rural areas. And that's what we're going to do. So that's why we're saying that the amount of development in terms of the infrastructure will follow the strategy to say where actually are the areas. Then you are able to bring in federations. Those federations are able to bring the technical skills to make sure that the sport actually gets played.
What do we do in the meantime, though, if there is that talent that could potentially be nurtured and represent the country at an international level, but they are missed, they fall through the cracks because there isn't anything currently, albeit that we're utilizing the minimum resources that are there?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You talk about, it was not there last time before 2012. As we closed, the first aspect of that agreement, you are talking about 6,000 schools that ordinarily will not have been there in terms of the talent identification. And we are working on what were the hiccups for us to actually feather in. Now, part of it is that you need to bring federations that have got a technical know-how. How do you play this sport? So you are actually expanding the space for them to come in. Yeah.
We're sitting pretty much with I suppose with our tails between our legs, or even more embarrassment that we haven't qualified for a World Cup. And this is the talk that we'll have, that South Africa, yes, we scored the opening goal, with the Simpiwe Shabalala, and then everything else went south, so to speak. So where's the level of development? Again, a national plan that says we would be able to qualify at some point.
Well, those are the issues. I think there's, if you talk about soccer, we'll have tried a whole lot of different aspects. I think in terms of how do you, people undermine the importance of infrastructure. You'll find in South Africa that we are able to dribble around. The reality of the matter is that there were no poles for us to actually practice how to score, the game. But there are obviously more technical people that are able to explain more what is the goal drought that we are facing in South Africa. But I think that is the issue, that you need to move. You need to start somewhere, but you must make sure that you put infrastructure. And for us, that is very important. Bring the technical know-how. That federation must actually be there. Then the Department of Education must then bring the human resource in terms of the teachers who must actually be willing to do this thing, and including parents, African parents who must be able to go and support these kids to make sure that they really succeed.
And I like that, the fact that there needs to be a level of ownership from communities and parents as well, in that even if he ground is a term, rest in peace, where I come from, that is, it doesn't have a well-manicured lawn or anything like that, but nonetheless, it's an open space where we grew up, playing, etc., that if communities were to organize themselves, start with having inter-school teams, for example, just to get into the culture of sport.
Yeah, no, correct. If you talk about your inter-schools, within the school, the Department of Education will fund that. From the district level, provincial level, national level, the Department of Sport will actually fund those partner tournaments. So it's not an issue that we're talking about. So we're going to ring-fence some of the money that we send it to the provinces, that we send it to the federation. So federation must then say, we are giving you this amount of money. This one is ring-fenced for, to develop school sport. So it's not an issue that the money is going to be thrown, but you must be able to say how that money has been actually used.
All right, so are you saying that there's currently a bidding process for those that are in the health and wellness or sporting fraternity to approach the department with some form of a proposal?
Well, we have always been approached by a whole lot of different people, and we've always say either redirect them to say you can actually get an assistant there, or reconnect them with the federation. Because what is important for us, we need organized communities. Because if every South African can come saying, I've got an idea, it might actually make us not to move. But we are able to channel them, say, no, there's a SAFA. If you want to go to deal with the issue of sport, that's where you go. If it's rugby, there's SARO and a whole lot of things. So that as communities are able to come, they are able to be in an organized fashion.
Okay, and just your plans, it's Youth Month as of tomorrow, and primarily being a young nation, so to speak. What is the department doing to ensure that, one, young people have a sense of hope and an outlet when it comes to sports and recreation, and secondly, that there is a national strategy where the department wants to take sports development?
Well, I think, as you're correctly saying, tomorrow, just as an issue, the minister will be with young people, walking a 5-kilometer walk, but also after that, making sure that he's able to provide them, with school uniforms and all that. That's the work that she normally does. But the part of it that is not being spoken about is an economic aspect of sport. The whole value chain of sport, and that's a discussion that we'll be having with young people to say, no, it's not only about playing, but there are issues of value chain. The kit that people wear, the balls that are being manufactured and all that. Throughout the value chain, where can young people actually enter that particular space? So we'll be engaging with them on that.
And what's the role of the private sector, especially the manufacturers, as you are saying, of sporting kits and soccer boots, etc., in their corporate social investment? Yeah. Because if you're saying you're still waiting for the federation infrastructure, at least at a value chain level, the private sector has a role to play.
No, true. I mean, we'll be engaging with them. At least now what they have done is through the Sport Trust, they've started to come in a big way of delivering, the facilities. As I was saying, Nedbank was delivering the one in Polokwane. Petra Diamond is the one that is delivering the one in Cullinan. But the engagement that we want to have with them throughout, how then do you make sure that you empower SMEs that happen to be young, to make sure that they manufacture your cricket bats and all sorts of things. That engagement is actually in the pipeline.
But at what level are those discussions? Because as you are saying, we are a consumer-based nation, and there is lucrative opportunities within the government sector. Yeah. So why are those manufacturers not compelled to open up factories in communities that they serve?
That's a discussion we're having with them. That's what I'm saying. Throughout this period, we'll be actually having that meeting with them together with young people who are in the space of manufacturing. In particular, if you're talking about cricket bats, balls, and all sorts of things, to see how then they can come in.
All right. Give us timelines. What are the activities that we can follow in terms of whether it will be community engagements or whether it will be the infrastructure or sod turning, as it were? Where do we go for that kind of info?
Well, certainly they happen every day. I communicate with most of your producers almost weekly. I mean, you've got, there's one that will be opening now again in Polokwane. There's one that will be opening in King Sabata in the Eastern Cape. We will open one just before our budget vote 2 weeks back in Swellendam. So we are opening those infrastructure across the country. Yeah. It will, in a month, you're talking about 3 infrastructure.
Okay, give us a mental visual of how these facilities, or what service they provide to the community. So is it largely rugby fields, or what kind of facilities?
It's a combination. You've got tennis courts, you've got hockey, you've got rugby, you've got netball. So they differ, depending what the community will say it wants. If, for example, if you take Swellendam, you've got a very nice clubhouse. On the other side is cricket, on the other side is soccer. The one that is going to be opened in Cullinan, you've got tennis court, you've got hockey, then you also have, netball facility.
Yeah, and does the sports department then, I suppose in conjunction with the education department, have an annual program of what activities will take place, say, for example, winter sports, yeah, so that communities can participate in those infrastructure is not just underutilized?
Yeah. No, there are winter sports. There's autumn sport as well as summer sports. The winter sports actually starting to be underway now in terms of your soccer, your rugby sports. So they are starting to basically come in. I think what is important from us is to really highlight it as and when they happen, so that South Africans can then rally around it. So they are able, even through themselves, to identify some of the talent that we're actually going to be having. Maybe we can even speak with yourselves to start taking your cameras to some of those games to make sure that you are able to really show those young people that indeed there's something that they are doing, that it can actually take them somewhere.
And I'm asking because there is, and I'll refer to my place of birth, I guess, or my hometown, where the ball facilities and a little bit of other recreational activities were taking place is more a chore where young people go and hang out with their mates and bring a cooler box, etc., not necessarily utilized for what it's purposed.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure that there is value for money in that aspect?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You need communities to come into play. That's why you also have to have schools being linked to those facilities so that they can be continuously used. And it's very important, including the communities, to really support whoever that basically. So it's nice that they hang around, but as they hang around, there must actually be some activity of sporting that actually happens. It brings the social cohesion of society so that everyone basically, you create that communal kind of environment, which is very, very important, for the development of our own country, that we actually bridge the social gaps that we're having.
Yeah. And how accessible is the department now under the new administration with Ms. Xasa?
Well, we meet
on social media. Does she have a Twitter handle?
Yeah, she does. She was not as active as your previous minister. That was but yeah, she does. We are able to get a lot of people. I know I've lined up her meetings without her being aware. For next week, for example, that she must meet some South Africans that they've got an idea of how we must actually develop this country.
Okay, Vuyo Mhanga, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Lovely having you in studio. We're joined in studio by the Sports Ministry Liaison Officer, and that is Vuyo Mhanga, and we'll check it out on social media. Any ideas that you may have, you're most welcome to tag us as well. It's at Afro Worldview. We take a quick break, and we'll be back just after this.